Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ellie and today I'm going to be talking about my top 15 books that I read in 2024. So I've read a total of 150 books so far. It's looking like it's going to be 151 by the end of the year, potentially 152 depending on whether I get out of the slump or not. So it was quite hard to narrow down just 15, but I'm going to try and do a separate video of every book that I've rated 5 stars so I can talk a little bit more about every single book that I loved this year. But to keep this one short, these are just the top 15 best, and these are in no particular order either. Starting off, I have 2 which are part of the same series, and that is Binding 13 and Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. These are the first 2 books in the Boys of Tommen series, and these follow Shannon and Johnny. And actually, Binding 13 was the first book that I read this year, and I was really wary about this series at first because I wasn't sure if it was going to be something that I was going to enjoy, and they're really thick books, so I was just intimidated to start it. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to try them, and I loved them. I just felt so many different emotions while reading these, and I just really felt sucked into their world. Like, one minute I was happy, one minute I was sad, and I was just really rooting for Shannon and Johnny, and they were hard at times. I feel like you need to be in the right headspace to pick these up, and if you haven't read them yet and have been thinking about it, definitely check the trigger warnings. But these are just some hyped books that I would say definitely do deserve the hype. I own, as you can see, the next ones in the series that are currently out, so I'm definitely going to continue with this series in 2025. I'm hoping to pick up Saving 6, which is the start of Joey and Aoife's story. I believe Joey is Shannon's brother, and he was one of my favourite characters actually from this series, so I'm really nervous to move on to his book. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be one of the first books that I pick up in 2025. Then I have King of Greed by Anna Huang. There of course had to be one book by Anna Huang in this video, as she is one of my favourite authors, but this is the 3rd book in the Kings of Sin series. In this one we follow Dominic and Alessandra, and they are married, but Alessandra has just had enough. Dom doesn't give her enough attention, she doesn't feel loved, so she decides that she wants a divorce, and this just kind of really hits Dom hard, and he doesn't want that. So this entire book is basically him grovelling to her to try and win Alessandra back, and I just loved it so much. I love the characters. Dom is definitely one of my favourite male main characters, and I just did not want to put this one down when I was reading it. And this is my favourite of the Kings of Sin series so far. I haven't yet read book 4, but I do own it, so it's another one that I really need to get to in 2025. Next, I loved Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I read this back in like February, so honestly I don't really remember too much about it at this point, but I was looking back through Goodreads and I marked how much I love this one. There's a couple of tabs in here as well, and I'm pretty sure I did a reading vlog the week I read this. So this is a small town brother's best friend romance, and surprise surprise, I haven't read the rest of this series, but I do own the rest of them. I feel like I'm setting myself up for a really good TBR for 2025 because I just have so many series to continue that I've already started and have loved. Then another book that I read back in February that I really loved was Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is book 4 in the Chestnut Spring series, and in this one we follow Winter and Theo. Winter is Summer's sister, who is the heroine in book 1, and this is an accidental pregnancy romance, which I was really worried going into. That is a trope that I tend to avoid, but I thought if anyone can write a book with that trope that I will love, it would be Elsie Silver, and of course I ended up loving it. So Theo doesn't actually know about the baby, and then when he finds out, he just really wants to be in his daughter's life, and I just really loved Theo as a hero. It was a really sweet story, and Winter especially, she has so much character growth within this book. I just really enjoyed reading about it. Then I have a young adult book, which I feel like it's surprising because I don't really read it, but we have Thieves Gambit by Kavian Lewis. So in this one we follow Rosalind. I believe she went by Ross or Roz in the book, and she comes from a family of professional thieves, and something happens and she needs to raise some money, and she receives an invitation to take part in Thieves Gambit, which is essentially like a competition for thieves, which they have to like complete these tasks to win a sum of money. And at first she doesn't want to take part in this, but when she needs the money, she's like, if I win this, I can sort out this situation. So she takes part, and I binged this. I loved it so much. Again, it's part of a series. I received book 2 for Christmas there, another one I need to read next year. I just couldn't predict what was going to happen in this, and I was just really invested. We're getting halfway through now, but we have A Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I'm not too sure what the series is called. The first book is called When in Rome, but this is book 2. So we follow Will, who is the bodyguard of the heroine from book 1, and Annie, who I think she's the sister of the hero from book 1. So Annie is having some trouble when it comes to dating, and Will becomes like her dating coach, and usually this is a trope that I do not enjoy. But I love Sarah Adams. I've loved every book I've read by her, and this book made me want to pick up more books with that trope again after avoiding them for so long. It was just so sweet. This is definitely one of my favourite book covers as well out of all of the books I'm talking about. Like, look how gorgeous that is. If you like the fake dating, friends to lovers whole thing, then definitely pick this one up. Then I have Consider Me by Becca Mack. This is a hockey romance, and I've definitely found a love of hockey romance this year. I've read so many, I've added so many to my TBR, I've downloaded so many on my Kindle, and I need to get through them. This is the story of Carter and Olivia. So Carter is obviously an NHL player, and for Carter it is like as soon as he sees Olivia, he falls in love and he's like, she's the one I want, and I loved that. And Olivia wants to stay away from him. He has a bit of a reputation and she just doesn't want to give in to that, and he spends a lot of the book trying to prove to her that he can be what she wants, that she can trust him. And I binged this again. I think I read this, it's quite a thick book, but I think I read it within 2 days. You can't really see because they're like faint, but I tabbed a lot of this book as well. Again, another book that I loved and haven't continued the series despite owning the rest of the series. That is something I need to get better at in 2025. Then this book was probably the one that made me feel most emotional, aside from Binding and Keeping 13, and that is The Summer You Found Me by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is book 3 in the summer series, and I feel like this isn't necessarily controversial, but I read a lot of reviews on Goodreads whilst I was reading this series. I read the first 3 back to back whilst I was on holiday, and I feel a lot of people didn't really love this book, but it was my favourite. I haven't read the 4th or 5th yet, but I just remember reading this and I felt so seen. I could relate to some of the things that the female main character had been through, and she was portrayed as like not a very nice person in the earlier books. So her name was Kate and Beck. So yeah, Kate was not portrayed as the nicest person, and you got to kind of learn more about her in this book. So she was married to one of the heroes in one of the other books, and it was a really messy divorce, and Beck was that guy's best friend, so it was like forbidden in that aspect, but you really got to kind of get behind the character of Kate and learn why she was like she was. And this just, it made me emotional. I could relate to it, and I feel like I could see why people didn't like it, but for me, I remember coming away from it like, my feelings are valid. I felt seen, and this is a book that I feel will always be very special to me. Then I have The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. This is book 2 in the Windy City series. You can guess what I'm going to say about this series. I've read the first 2, haven't continued, but do own them. This is the story of Ryan and Indy. It is a sports romance. Ryan is a basketball player, and Indy worked with the female main character who was in book 1 as a flight attendant, and she needs somewhere to stay, and her best friend's brother is Ryan, and she suggests that she stays in Ryan's spare room, and Ryan really doesn't want anything to do with this, but slowly him and Indy start to get along, a relationship develops, and it's just so cute. Again, I tabbed a few bits in here. I really want to get better at tabbing. Like, I feel like I never really know what to tab, and I honestly just tab quotes that sound good. Yeah, again, it was just another one that I was left like, I love it, I still think about it, I still think about the characters, I was really invested in them, and another really hyped book that I think deserves the hype. Next we have another hockey romance, and that is Collide by Bao Cabra. I have seen very mixed reviews about this one, but honestly I loved it. This one is the story of Summer and Aiden, and they are at college. Aiden is the captain of the hockey team. So in this one, Summer has to write a research paper, and Aiden's coach puts him forward for her to write about and kind of like flow around, and Summer just finds him really annoying. She doesn't really like him, but he likes her, and it was just like a cute college hockey romance. I remember binging this one as well. It's definitely one of my favourite hockey romances that I have read. And I felt that this year I read a lot of fantasy, but when I was going back through my Goodreads and my favourites, I didn't actually read that much. So here is the first of only 2 fantasies on the list, and that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. Admittedly, now I'm talking about it, I don't really remember what was in this. This was a cover buy when I went to Hay on Wye last year. I went to the Hay Festival and my fiance said I could pick a book, and I chose this one. So our female main character, she lives in this world, and I think it was that she wasn't supposed to exist, and she possesses this magic that she shouldn't have, so she has been hidden for all this time, and now they have found out about her, so she is forced to flee to another, it was either like another world or like another part of the world, and she is just kind of left in this place that she doesn't know, and she ends up at like this house working, I think she's like a maid, and then she's working alongside the Emperor's son, and she needed to get close to him, and then she like wins this competition to like work alongside him, but I can't remember like the exact details. I need to reread this, but I just remember finding this really like mystical. I remember being really invested, and it was one I wasn't sure if it was going to be my kind of thing, so I was pleasantly surprised when I ended up loving it. Then I have Cross the Line by Simone Sultani. This is an F1 romance. So we have Dev, who is a driver in the F1, and Willow. So Dev gets Willow a job as part of their F1 team that she really needs to like help boost her career. So she goes around with the team traveling, and she gets closer to Dev, and they can't be together because of the work, and I'm pretty sure he was like friends with her brother or something. So there's lots of little like forbidden bits as to why they can't be together, but there's just so much chemistry between the two. And it's another one with a really gorgeous cover. We're almost there. Book number 14, Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayra. I think that's how you say the author's name. This is one that I'd been putting off for the longest time, and then when I got to it I was like, why did I not pick this up sooner? I absolutely loved it. In this one we have Evie, who gets the job as the assistant to the villain, as the title obviously gives away. And the villain is like very closed off, everyone's kind of scared of him, and she just kind of walks in and she doesn't really take anything too seriously, and the villain really tries to hate her, but slowly he starts to really enjoy her company. He starts to find her amusing whilst he tries to like keep his composure and have everyone thinking he's this like really heartless person. And I just really loved the two of them together. The final book that I absolutely loved this year was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I did a reading vlog on this not too long ago, and I don't really know how to explain this book without kind of really giving anything away, but it is a fantasy romance. The writing of this was just so magical. I really took my time with this one. I feel like if you haven't really read a lot of fantasy, I would not pick this one up because it was quite complex. There was a lot going on and the writing style was just very different. But if you have read a lot of fantasy, I think this would be a really good one for you if you haven't read it yet. And book 2 is not out until like late next year, which is infuriating because I need to continue it. I need to know what happens, and I was not expecting to love this one as much as I did. Okay, so they are my top 15 books of 2024. Let me know if you've read any of these, were any of these on your favourites, or were any of these ones that you didn't really enjoy, and what was your favourite book or books of 2024. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon.